and welcome to the 10-Star Happy Hour podcast. This is actually going to be our last episode of the season, and here with me today is Mr. Chase. Chase, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. We have a cool topic to discuss today, the difference between DOD and private air shows and social media and what that looks like on both sides of the coin. Chase, go ahead and introduce yourself. Talk a little bit about what you do for a living, and tell us about your background, how you got into this industry. Just tell us all about yourself.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. And pressure's on. Final episode of the season. Let's deliver some goods, right?
It's got to be a good one. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, my name is Chase Kohler. So my day job currently, I am the Chief of Communications, Public Affairs, if you will, out here at sunny Edwards Air Force Base in Southern California. That includes Edwards Air Force Base, Air Force Operating Location Plant 42 in Palmdale, California, a couple other remote fields out near Palmdale and everything like that. So flight test everything essentially is kind of what I do day in and day out for internal, external communications, all that good stuff. And I'm an av geek by trade, born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. And so aviation has always been close to my heart. I grew up a mile away from McDonnell Douglas / Boeing at Lambert Airport in St. Louis, and saw new F-15s, FA-18s, Harriers, right? My whole life taking off for test flights. We had a guard unit there. And ever since 2 years old, something bit me, and I've just been playing crazy, so to speak. And as life continued onward, I realized that, man, I need to do this for a living too. Like, I need to be in this ecosystem because I was just always talking about planes, thinking about planes. And I was like, why can't I actually get paid to do this? And so over the years, I found a way to thankfully move into the defense industry, and never thought I'd end up in the middle of the desert, which no windows in my office, unfortunately, but I can promise you we're in the middle of the sunny Mojave Desert right now, where everything is flying around us to test the latest and greatest. And it's truly one of the coolest opportunities I think I'll ever have.
Yeah. Something bit me. I feel that. Something bit me when I started working here at a 10-Star. It's like, whoa, this is really cool. Like, I never would have imagined that I would be working with air shows and on the ticketing side and on the marketing side of an air show. So I like that. I haven't heard that one before. Something bit me. Yeah.
Yeah. And once you get bit by it, you don't, it doesn't heal, right? It's a festering wound for life. I mean, very few people go into any aspect of aerospace, I feel like, and come out of it and just let it go. They always either keep a toe in or they just switch roles within it. And I'm grateful for the air show side of it too, because being back in St. Louis, my first air show was the Spirit of St. Louis Air Show. And I was 10 years old. It was the first time I saw the Blue Angels. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know airplanes could do that. Like, I didn't know they could do, like, I saw it in movies, but to see it in real time, like, that was just crazy. And I'm really grateful to the team there currently is still keeping that show going in a different incarnation this day and age. And I come back to my hometown every few years when we decide to do another show in St. Louis. And so I've been working on their marketing team and a little bit of BD as well since about 2018. And even before that, I was a volunteer for a nonprofit that was with the show onwards from 2014. So it's pretty cool to go back and actually help produce the show that kind of was my first air show. I always get really emotional when that time comes, and I'm like, man, like, look at all these years later and we're still doing this and this is still happening. And then on the other side of that, when I came out to this opportunity here at Edwards, they were just gearing up for their first show in 13 years out here back in 2022. And that was a massive undertaking. And what I thought I knew from a lot of aspects with the private experience, because St. Louis is a private show, we sell tickets to gain admission. The DOD is obviously part of the overall taxpayers, fund it. And so you can usually opt in for premium tickets, but you're not going to pay a fee at a military base. And so that was a completely different approach from everything from the social media side to the marketing side to the communication side, all the way to the hospitality side for the performers and sponsors, things like that. It was just night and day difference. And I came out of that much more aware of the difference and nuances between DoD and private than I did coming into it.
Yeah, yeah. Private air shows, there's a very large focus on ticket sales and promoting tickets because you have a general admission ticket. Everyone needs a ticket to go to the show, right? And DoD shows, it's not like that at all. It's very important to let the public know that there is no fee for admission, and you want people to come to the base. You want to show everyone, what the base is all about. You want to impress those folks. And so, yeah, from a marketing standpoint, it's completely different, completely different. And of course, with air shows specifically, we can focus so much on the performers of the air show, whether it's a DoD or a private air show. Everyone loves the fun reels, on Instagram, on TikTok, wherever it is, of the Blue Angels, the Thunderbirds, the F-22, all these other performers. But what are some other things other than outside of the performers chase from a social media perspective that perhaps you focus on to either communicate with attendees or perhaps even just to promote the air show?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, people come for the planes. Let's not ever discredit that. There's something to be said about the power of your lineup and the power of your displays, and obviously, that's another whole topic on securing those and making sure they're good. But once you have that in place, right, you obviously want to market that because that's going to get people for the gate or to show up. But there's so much more. Air shows today, I think, are 10 times more than what they are even a decade ago. It's a little cliche now, but it's not. Almost every air show is a STEM expo as well. Spirit of St. Louis Air Show, we were probably the first air show, at least in the mainstream, to really tack that on and the heading title, like Spirit of St. Louis Air Show and STEM Expo. The DOD, big military, and for all the branches, hopped onto that about 7 years later, and then a bunch of other private shows have added STEM. So when you look at a world today where everything is virtual, we're always on our screens. We're always talking to each other like we are right now, right? We're virtual. We're not in person. And then obviously, there was the pandemic. We know that everybody is used to not being around other people. And what's happened over time is events have become that one outlier where people are really excited to actually go and be around other people. Now, if you're an introvert, I get it, right? You're going to stay away. But majority of folks, right, even if, you tend to kind of gravitate more into the solo space, you want to be in the moment. You want to hear the noise. You want to smell the smells, see the experience. And I think that's the key to really unlocking, whether you're private or DoD, is to elevate that experience, because you're going to get to meet people that you're not going to meet otherwise. You're going to meet aviators. You're going to meet very awesome engineers. From the STEM side, there's going to be so many types of activities and hands-on, highlighting why being together and being in person is so critical, I think, for that event.
Yeah, most definitely. And, on the topic of social media, we'll start with the DoD show just because, and then afterwards talk about a private show as well. What social media platforms would you say, the best for reaching people for DoD shows, and what do you think works the best for private air shows? And is there a difference? Maybe why is there a difference? Talk a little bit about that. Is TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, what's most effective?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a great question. There used to not be too much of a difference. Social media, pick your channels and stick to them and work it either way. From a DoD side, we'll start with backing up here. We'll start with some metrics, right? Facebook is itself, right, is not where your youth is today. Facebook is where your parents are and where your grandparents are, who are going to pay for tickets if they want an elevated experience. But from a DoD side, you're not really getting the youth on that. You're getting a lot of veterans, which is great because you want to make sure they know about this too. But from a active duty installation, like I definitely think Instagram is that key function there. Um, it's the most accessible. It's the most used by far, and it's also the one that the DoD can actually exploit to their advantage to reach people. So, you brought up TikTok. That's a great point. Right now, because of the state of TikTok and ownership and the state of the world, the DoD, we can't touch TikTok. It's not happening right now. As much as I personally wish it would, it just doesn't make sense in a national security environment. So, that's right away a huge miss where you're like, oh my goodness, if I can't get on TikTok, how am I going to reach these folks? So it's not all bad news. It just means you are going to double down on your content to make it, as shareable and growing as possible, I guess is the best way to say it. The old saying that's so cliche now is content is king, but it's still true because even if it's not going to be shared on Instagram, double post it. Use YouTube Shorts, which is a similar competitor. Use Threads, which is coming out of Instagram and trying to rival against X, formerly known as Twitter. Use all the channels you have, make good content that can be shared, and chances are you're going to have your content shared on TikTok anyways if it's really good, because if you're not posting it yourself, someone else is going to want to repost your video on TikTok and get that following for themselves. And while you're not directly engaging with it, at least you're still getting that awareness out. And for the DoD, again, it's really about showcasing the mission as much as possible, because outside of a limited, upgraded tickets, they're not seeking to charge at the gate, like we said. So you're really wanting to push your mission as much as possible. So use it. On the flip side, for private shows, right, no restrictions there. So I would encourage, private shows, and this is something that we really want to explore at the St. Louis show, is to use TikTok, right? I mean, if you're able to use it to get to that next generation. There's an awesome STEM feature too that bleeds into our previous, conversation about why, the STEM aspect is kind of secondary now. Just think of what you can do content-wise with your STEM Expo on TikTok for your private show. I mean, it sells itself. And while a lot of the DoD teams that are probably going to translate to your private show are not going to be on TikTok because of the same reasons, national security environment, your show itself, like we said, is so much bigger than just your performers. So use that, highlight the people, highlight the experiences, highlight the activities.
Yeah, TikTok is just incredible how many people you can reach organically without spending a dollar on digital advertising. Um, it's like you said earlier, like good content is so important when it comes to reaching people organically. And even on the digital advertising side of things, where you are actually spending money to promote your air show on Facebook, for example, and Instagram, or anywhere else, that content is still just so crucial. It's like you said, sharing content when it's good. I mean, the likelihood of your following sharing your most recent post is obviously going to increase so much if that content is good and you really focus on coming up with unique, good ideas, ways to promote your air shows, behind the scenes look at different things. And yeah, I think it goes hand in hand. And obviously for shows who don't have a large following, perhaps, you've only had an air show once or twice, maybe a few times, and maybe you have, a couple thousand followers on social media, maybe even less. There's still so many ways you can reach people organically. And we like to use the word at a 10-star buzz. Let's create buzz around your event. How can we create buzz? And, that buzz side of things is really people sharing content and also just talking about your event. And word of mouth spreads very, very quickly, and it can help tremendously with attendance, with ticket sales, whichever it may be. Doing a really good job when it comes to social media is just so crucial today. And if you don't have a great presence on social media, like it's time to be there, and to shift some more focus to social media, because um, you're missing out. You're missing out on the digital advertising side of things. For example, um, we work with an air show this year who spent just $3,000 on Facebook, um, Instagram as well, and increased their revenue from last year almost 40%, um, just from $3,000 of ad spend. The return on ad spend, when you do a good job, and that's the kicker, you got to make sure you're doing a good job. You got to make sure it's good content. You can't just throw anything out there.
And I'll add on that to the content side, right? Is your structure is key too. There's a lot of good content doesn't exist if a tree falls in the forest but no one's around. Did it really happen? Same thing. If you post it but you're not actually doing the post the right way, and you're not tagging the right people, using the right hashtags, using the right timing to post, all those variables, right? I mean, let's not gloss over that. To do social media right, you actually have to learn how to do social media a little bit. So definitely take time or find an expert that can kind of guide you on that, because you can have the most amazing video. And this happens more. People find viral videos and they go, how did this happen? Or they find something that, has been sitting online for months, and then all of a sudden it just gets picked up and it goes viral because it was just sitting there. It wasn't being seen. So I concur, do your advertising the right way, but also do your posting the right way. Don't waste your post.
And so, Chase, how can airshow organizers create this engaging content that really just captures excitement, around the event, and encourages interaction on social media? Throw out maybe some ideas of how airshow organizers can actually create this content before the air show. It's funny, we start so far in advance, when it comes to promoting an air show, as we should, and but it may be 2 days before the air show before you're actually ready for an air show at the airport or at the base. There's no chairs set up. It doesn't look like an event at all. So talk about maybe some ways that you can create that engaging content way prior to your event actually happening.
There's a couple things you can do, and the first thing really is to just be active. I'll say that. Like, don't wait for the event to get closer to be active. An air show or any event, right? Events only last for 2 to 3 days. If we're talking about air shows, a very small piece of time in the grand scheme of things. But if you're a private show, you're selling tickets months, if not a year in advance. If you're a DOD show, you have a 90-day sprint is what they call it, where you really double down and start going forward. But as soon as your show dates are announced and you get that initial communication out there, that is when you need to start keeping content going. You need to start experimenting. Use those early times where you're not under the heat of the moment, to where people are expecting you to do content and expecting you to post, to figure out what's working for you, what you feel comfortable with. And I would say don't give away your hand is the number one thing I could say from starting out. You might have an amazing lineup, right? You might have an amazing piece of activities, like maybe the Budweiser Clydesdales are coming down show center. Maybe you're going to have World War II veterans be honored, right? And all this stuff you're going to end up doing at the show 6-8 months later. Don't give away the hand. Slow drip that. Make people want to invest in understanding what this event has to offer. Start, teasing them a little bit. So if you have a headliner, you start with that. We're excited to have them. You can use so much content that's online freely available from a lot of performers to get your initial posting started. Feed into their imagery and video, repost it, use your own hashtag or your own website, drop that ticket link in there, everything you can do. And then after that, start making your own special announcements, right? Start dropping those things like, by the way, in addition to having XYZ, perform in the front of the skies and having, a giant telescope space activity, I don't know, making it up at the STEM Expo, we're going to have, these Dalmatians there that are going to do like with the Clydesdales run down the show center, or we're going to have, bagpipers open with a national anthem. All of those things are, I think a lot of events do those little extras, but they don't do a great job at telling people them in advance. But everything should be used for hype. Everything is hype. If you have a new parking plan, that's hype. I'm sorry, people hate traffic, right? If you're mowing the grass because air shows, a lot of airports aren't prepared to hold events, so you got to get these showgrounds ready. Likewise, Air Force bases are designed to keep people out by default for security. You're doing the exact opposite when you do an open house at any military installation. You're bringing in thousands of cars, and it's not designed for that. So there's going to be traffic. But things start moving really early to make efforts for those. Showcase your efforts to get ready for this event. But also, like I just said with the military installations or any event really, if there's going to be traffic, start socializing that with your attendees. There's going to be traffic, but this is what you can do. Like plan ahead, come early, stay late, take advantage of their time. And then, at the end of all of this, I would say the biggest thing is start engaging with the people, especially if you're building an audience and you haven't done this really well historically, or you haven't really spent a lot of time on it. You need to start engaging, especially if you're a newer show. I would respond to every comment, honestly. Respond to every comment, even if it's just like, how exciting. An emoji with a thumbs up saying, we can't wait to see you, right? Respond to these people. Respond to your DMs, your direct messages. Make sure people know that there is a human behind the social media. The organizers, we do care about you. Get them involved, because if you're also just posting stuff and you're not engaging with any of it, and people are commenting and you're not helping them keep it going, throwing out contests. What's your favorite airplane? Name your top 3 favorite airplanes. What static do you want here? Or, what is your one-time favorite air show memory, or whatever it is. If you're not soliciting and getting people to comment and engage, you're not doing it right, because it's social media should not be a one-way street from the organizers. It should be a direct line to your attendees.
Disney does a great job of focusing on memories at Disney. Share a Disney moment. I think there's a commercial that's running right now that focuses on a Disney moment, and these people pull up their phones and they're like, "Oh yeah, I have a Disney moment," and they'll find a photo of the last time they were at Disney. And I think with air shows, you talk about sharing an air show moment, especially for like the Spirit of St. Louis, for example, or any show that's been held for over a significant period of time. You're going to have a lot of people who see your post of like, hey, share your favorite air show memory, and they're going to have a lot of cool things to share. They'll share a photo from way back, and people like looking back at their memories, and looking back at their camera roll, and sharing that on social media. And I think that's a really cool idea. I like that one. And another way, that is really like another thing that's important to look at and understand is your demographic too, when it comes to your posting on social media, or your overall strategy. And when you understand your demographic, you can do fun things like maybe seek out some influencers, right? Like what role does influencer marketing play in promoting air shows, Chase?
It's do or die at this point. That's the way I describe it. If you're not getting, and what's define what an influencer is, right? I mean, so there's all these types. So you have your super influencers, you have your micro influencers, your macro. What does that all mean? So someone in your community who has a decent following, whether it be, it depends on the community, right? But it could be a local representative. It could be a restaurant that's really popular, something like that. That's a local influencer. Start with, get them involved. Reach out to them saying, what can we do with this? Start with your performers and your talent. You're having an event. The first question you should be doing after you sign that performers contract is saying, okay, let's talk about what you can do for, for social media marketing and stuff. Like, what do you want to get into? Can we collaborate? Are you open to doing this? And then you have your bigger influencers, right? Which can go from a very expensive pay to play all the way to something where you're reaching out behind the scenes. A great example in St. Louis, which I think Mark Sutherland mentioned in a previous episode, was, we had some really awesome content folks in the airshow industry who had relationships with the performers, and we shifted a lot from tagging them passively and hoping that they engage to reaching out ahead of time and saying, hey, what day works for you where you're going to be able to accept this collaboration? And yes, so it appears on both of our pages. So I don't have you liking it at 2 a.m. 2 days later. Like, I need you to like it now. And you both benefit from it. The performers benefit from it. The show benefits from it. And from a military side, it's a little harder, right? Because again, military has so many regulations because it's a federal entity. You can't necessarily go and do these types of collaborations as easy. There's different rules depending on if it's a military installations page. A great way around those rules, and again, you need manpower to do this, but is to have an outside organization through your federal office create and help run that air show, right? If you're going to do a show and has a good branding on it for military base, example, our show was named the Aerospace Valley Open House, an air show and STEM Expo. So what we did was we created a whole set of sub accounts tied to that Aerospace Valley domain, and that therefore was not actually our federal installation page. And we had a lot more freedom to kind of post a little more ad hoc, tag more people, because it wasn't a federal endorsement, right? And there was no way it was going to be mixed to that. It was an offshoot page. And then we benefited from that too, because our social media following that was the Edwards installation, which is pretty high up for DOD standards, we were able to reshare the airshow pages stuff and kind of double up on our engagement. And we were at one point, getting closer to the show, we were feeding off each page. They're both us, but one is an air show and one is the military installation. So, I think people tend to think that when you have a DOD show, you're handcuffed, but you're not necessarily. You just have to get a little more creative on how to actually to build that. And by all means, the military being an installation opens you up to many other DOD influencers in the government side of things that a private show probably can't do because of that. So find the folks. Again, you started off this conversation really well with the demographics. Find the demographics that are going to appeal, and then find the folks that are going to align with your messaging.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, something that I don't see often, but I think is a really unique idea that works, is to talk to your sponsors, who could perhaps promote the air show, whether that's via their own customers, like an email list, or on their social media accounts specifically, as we're talking about social media. If you're an air show with larger sponsors who have a great following, perhaps talk to your sponsors, about collaborating on a post with you, and focus on, hey, so-and-so is the presenting sponsor of this air show, and show their followers that post.
Yeah. And, so a good example on that one too, right? So 2022 at Edwards, we had Dark Star from Top Gun 2, which, still relevant, not as relevant in 2024 or 2025 if you're listening to this then, as it was in 2022 when Top Gun Maverick came out. But, at that time was still extremely hot. And I remember we had the advantage of Lockheed Martin Skunk Works being in our ecosystem here at Palmdale and Edwards Air Force Base and just out here in the desert, right? So we were able to make that Dark Star happen because of the unique relationships that is Edwards Air Force Base and Flight Test. But the coolest thing that happened on top of that was we were down at Miramar, helping our Marines out there. We sent some Air Force folks down, and I went down to help their PA team. And there was a Paramount's Pictures booth giving out all this Top Gun swag. And I remember walking over to the thing, and I was like, what if we had the actual Dark Star coming up in 2 weeks or a month at Edwards? And they're like, what are you talking about? And it's obviously I'm going to put full disclosure here. I totally consulted our JAG and everybody else to make sure this was completely legal. But I'm like, what if we had like Paramount Studios come up like and be by the Dark Star, right? And give away like this Top Gun swag because they were promoting the DVD and Blu-ray release at the time. And they were like, what? Like the actual Dark Star prop? And so we were able to get it all cleared like in the nick of time. I mean, we were working like overtime, obviously, just to get that approved. But Paramount came up at their own cost just to promote that DVD release. I'm sorry, Blu-ray. And why wouldn't they, right? Because you had Dark Star. Now, granted, that's a silver bullet. Not every show is going to be able to kind of exploit a Hollywood movie prop at the right place, right time. So another great example, is the St. Louis show. Our sponsor primary is Boeing. And under that, we have lots of other STEM and science organizations. Definitely, as you said, talk to your sponsors. Make sure that social media is in that sponsorship agreement from the day you sign it. Make sure it's in the conversation because you want to use their audience. You want to make sure that they're promoting your event, but it kind of goes both ways too. The show organizers really need to make sure that you are giving kudos to your sponsors on social media to thank them publicly and to help them with the content that might serve them.
And lastly, like the know before you go information that you share on social media. Talk a little bit about that and sharing and getting that messaging across to everyone, whether it's a DOD air show or a private show. What's the difference of that know before you go information on both sides, and in what kind of ways, what creative ways can you share that know before you go information with attendees?
I will say there's very minimal differences because outside of paying a ticket versus not paying it, the no versus go is really about how to get there, what to expect of traffic, what to bring and what not to bring, weather questions. So, there's a variety of ways to feed that information. And in my opinion, you can't overfeed it. What we found success in it, no matter what show I've been in, is creating a social media post that has all that information, pinging that to the top about a week before, maybe even 2 weeks, depending on the event. That is your premium. That is your first post. That is your granddaddy post, and just keep that thread going. People post their questions in that thread, answer them, and keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. It's going to end up being the number one dominant post in people's feeds too, because of all the engagement. So that's one way. Working through partners like a 10-Star, right? You guys have your email marketing. So utilizing those to get the email reminders out there to all the ticket purchasers. Do more than one email because people need to be force-fed it. Your website FAQ needs to be the exact same as the social media and the email. I've learned this the hard way somewhere else, like if you change the verbiage because of maybe bad memory recall or maybe something changed, but you forgot to change that on the other source, it doesn't matter. Someone will find that original source, and now all of a sudden that information is completely outdated and you just made an attendee very angry. So, I would just say covering your bases and use your sponsors and use your influencers, use everything we talked about to really keep that know before you go present. Of all the media interviews that happen typically before the air show, the conversation that's ending, like, the last few moments of that interview on TV for your local station needs to be, what do people need to know? And just reinstate that know before you go. The more you can manage expectations before people show up, the better everything is going to be.
Well, that's a great way to end season 2 of the 10-Star Happy Hour podcast with Chase Kohler. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. It was fun. Thank you for all the awesome work you do to keep the aerospace dream alive, and I'm excited for another air show season upon us.
Right around the corner. Few shows for 2025 going on sale soon. It's here. ICAS is coming up soon. Now we're here in November.
ICAS is great.
Just a few weeks away. You'll see Chase. You'll see Chase at ICAS. You'll see me at ICAS. I'm sure we'll run into each other. Don't hesitate to stop and say hi.
Please do. Please say hi. Yeah.
We're there to to obviously network and talk air shows. We love talking air shows. It's what we do. So looking forward to seeing everybody there. And yeah, we'll end with that. Chase, thanks again for joining the Attend Star Happy Hour podcast. Once again, my name is Brennan Robinson from Attend Star, and here with me today is Chase Kohler, and we'll see you next season. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.